Hi, dear friends, cultural creatives, and imaginal selves everywhere. Bruce back, and this time with some answers to questions from our community. And this was a very interesting question because it was kind of personal. It said, Bruce, you are a cell biologist, sure, but how did you tie in the role of conscious and subconscious into the role of the cells? Well, the answer is very simple and very interesting in that regard. As a conventional biomedical scientist, I really didn't put much emphasis on the nature of mind and consciousness in controlling the fate of the cells because we were very much locked into the role of genes as the source of information that controls the expression of cells. So yes, of course, my work was focusing on the genes, the cell membrane, and how environmental signals are influencing those genes. I had no real interest in conscious and subconscious until an event that really shook up my life. Back in 1985, while I was teaching in the Caribbean, I had a motorcycle, and one day, being carefree and not being very intelligent, I was going way too fast on a road that I already knew, the layout of this road, and was coming into a corner. And then all of a sudden realized I'm going way too fast for this corner, and my motorcycle went straight off the road instead of going left at the corner. I went in a flip over the motorcycle and landed on my head. And this was a shock to my students in the Caribbean because I was offering them their final exam the next day. And what the students had heard was that I had an accident, and the interesting part was I was unconscious for more than a half hour, so that the students started really just extending that and already posting the fact that my eulogy, apparently I'm going to die from this motorcycle accident. They got real nervous about it, and but the whole thing worked out in a different way. After 30 to 40 minutes, I started to come back into consciousness again. And surrounding me when I was coming back into consciousness were colleagues from the medical school that I was teaching at. And these are medical doctors. So finally getting my head back together, and then I tried to stand up, and every bone in my body was hurting. I had black and blue marks all over my body. I couldn't even stand up straight. And it was interesting because around me were all my medical colleagues, and I said, you know, what are you going to do? I need some help here. And they said, we have some help. And they gave me a bottle of pain pills. And I thought, oh, okay, well, I took the pain pills away, but I was so doubled up I couldn't walk, and my back was hunched over, and my arm wasn't working right and all that because of the physical bruising and all that, and the shake-up to my spine. So there I am taking a pain med to try and help me. It's not helping me. I'm hobbling around looking like Quasimodo, and I show up at the school among all the cheers from the students that I'm back because now they know they can finish the course. And what was real interesting was I gave the exam to the students sitting down in a chair with a stick, and I was all doubled over pointing with a stick to things on the blackboard that I needed them to deal with. And I give them the exam. And after the exam is over, I try to get up and walk out, and I am really in bad shape. It's hard to even walk and move. And at this one moment, one of the students in the class said, you know, another student is a chiropractor, and he can do adjustments in his dorm room. Well, first of all, I come from the conventional medical community. What did I hear of chiropractors my entire time in the medical community? So chiropractors are quacks and fakes. But I'm going to have to tell you, I was hurting really bad. So I said to myself, quack or face, if they can do something for me, I'm going to go. So I went to the students' dorm room, and being curious, inquisitive about the practice, I said, can you tell me something or show me something that, you know, give me some positive feeling about the chiropractic process. So this is the first time I experienced called muscle testing. And he tried to show me, he says, let's do muscle testing. I said, well, what is that? He said, well, hold out your arm, and I'm going to try to pull it down. You resist. But before I pull you, on your arm, I want you to make a statement, and I'm going to show you something. And so he says, okay, make this statement. I am Bruce Lipton. So I hold out my arm, and everything is cool. I say, I am Bruce Lipton, and my arm is solid as a rock. And I go, okay, so now he goes, now do the same thing, but say your name is Ann. And I go, Ann? Oh, okay, no, big deal. Who cares? I'm going to hold out my arm. I'm going to say, my name is Ann. And then he started to pull. My arm dropped very quickly, and I was like caught off guard for a moment. And I said, oh my goodness, wait. you pulled before I was ready. Let's do it again. So I hold out my arm. I say, my name is Ann. He pulls on my arm and it drops again. And then all of a sudden I started to realize, oh my God, I am not in charge of this arm. Because I had in my mind, keep my arm rigid and strong. And when I said my name is Ann, my arm fell in spite of my effort to keep it strong. What was the point? Well, as a scientist, I had to just admit at that one moment, something else is controlling my biology besides my conscious mind, which is making this statement. And something is more powerful than my conscious mind because I'm trying with my conscious mind to keep my arm strong, and yet I lost the power. This was the first awakening to the fact of the power of the subconscious mind. That's when I started to recognize that the kinesiology test was the result of a subconscious mind analyzing the statement I made with my conscious mind. What did we find out? When I make a statement that my subconscious mind agrees with, my muscle is strong. Both minds are in harmony. But if I make a statement with my conscious mind that my subconscious mind doesn't support with its experience and programs, now my two minds are out of harmony. It was the weakening of my muscles. It was the result of disharmony between the statement I made with my conscious mind and the data held in my subconscious mind. Well, this immediately had a big impact on my life because the first question I had to ask is, if my subconscious mind is that powerful and can override my conscious wishes and intentions, then I better be very clear of what beliefs are held in my subconscious mind. Why? Because even with my positive wishes and desires to accomplish something, if I have a completely different opinion about that in my subconscious mind, then I'll recognize right away my conscious mind will not be able to manifest it because the subconscious mind was more powerful. So I then connected all this over a short time with the reality is, in my cell research, environmental signals control the genetics and behavior of the cells. That in tissue culture, the signals that I include in the tissue culture are those things that I introduce with the culture medium. And then I say, well, wait, look at a human body. Well, we see a single entity. The truth is it's a skin-covered culture dish with 50 trillion cells in it. And there's culture medium. It's called blood. And then all of a sudden you have to say, yeah, but to the cell and the fate of that cell, does it make a difference if the cell is in a plastic dish with synthetic culture medium or if the cell is in a skin-covered dish with the equivalent of culture medium blood? I say, no, in both cases, the culture medium or the blood will determine the fate of the cells. And I say, how? Because the nervous system releases chemistry into the body that is carried by the blood to the cells, and these represent environmental signals that ultimately control the behavior and genetics. And therefore, if you don't distinguish between those neurochemicals that come from the conscious mind and those that come from the subconscious mind, then you're in trouble. Because if you give more power to the chemicals secreted by the conscious mind, you're going to find that, no, it was the chemistry of the subconscious mind that was more powerful. And this is why it's really important for us to understand the nature of our programming, because the programming is an aspect of the subconscious, and the programming is more powerful in controlling your life than is the conscious mind. And this then is the bottom line of why biology of belief is so critical, because it says, yes, I know you have all your genes and all that, but your beliefs are the overriding control, and especially the beliefs that are downloaded into the subconscious mind, because from my first experience with muscle testing was my first recognition that that mind is the mind that has power over the control of my life. And if I have a disagreement with my subconscious mind, it's still my subconscious mind that will maintain the power. And therefore, if we want to change our lives, we have to recognize that the conscious and subconscious are influencing our biology. The subconscious is more powerful in its influence over consciousness. And when we have a conflict in our lives where our conscious mind has wishes and desires and we can't accomplish them, rather than looking outside and saying the world is not supporting me, the new science says we should look inside and make sure your subconscious is not sabotaging and disempowering you, because that is the place where the greatest loss of our power occurs, and that we should then recognize the role of consciousness in ultimately controlling genetics and cell behavior.